Good evening to you all. I, Devang, the co-founder of Legal Law Forum, welcome you all to the first ever episode of LLF Talks, which is the new segment that we are going to start today. So we at Legal Law Forum have always conducted legal education activities, and hence today, with the start of this new segment, we are going to invite guests from legal fraternity and engage in a discussion on the topics demanded by you people. So for the first ever episode, we have today with us Advocate Parvati Bakshi ma'am, who is presently working as an associate at Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas, which is one of the most prominent law firms in India. So I welcome you, ma'am, and thank you for taking time out of your schedule and being with us here today. So
Thanks
before
for having
begin,
me.
yes. So before beginning with the session, I'll just take 2 minutes of your time to introduce this guest for today. So Parvati Bakshi ma'am is a graduate from Jindal Global Law School and currently working as an associate, as I already mentioned, with Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas. Then, during her time in law school, she was involved with various co-curricular activities relating to moots and ADR. As an athlete, she was also a volleyball captain of her team and has also served as a sports society convener in her college at the time she was there. In terms of professional pursuits, she has interned majorly in Delhi High Courts with various advocates practicing in civil and arbitration side. Further, she has even entered as a research associate with Chambers of Justice Rajiv Sahai sir, who was judge at the Delhi High Court. Over the years, she has taken part in various programs in business law in Columbia University, international arbitration in Cologne University, Germany, and attended a semester exchange program in Ascend University, Barcelona as well. With a keen interest in disruptive technology, she has founded a research platform called the Digital Future, where researchers work on publications relating to artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, cryptocurrency, cybersecurity, fintech, and the things which overlap technology and society. So, with this, having a variety of experience during her time in law school in terms of internships and other co-curricular activities, we took the initiative of inviting her for today for the session, wherein we are going to talk about corporate internships and what are the career prospects in the corporate law firms. So, ma'am, with your permission, let's begin with the question and answer session.
Sure.
Okay, great. So, ma'am, let's start with the first very basic question. That is, what are corporate internships and what are the areas of law, and what type of practice can usually be found at the law firms?
Okay. So very simply put, corporate internships are internships where you work primarily with either an organization or an individual who specializes in company law, companies, and other company related aspects. People have this, kind of conception or notion, law students especially, that corporate law is only to do with Companies Act and you need to know how companies work, and they think it's a very tedious sort of job to have. But corporate internships are actually very broad, and there is a lot of variety to the sort of practice areas that one can come into touch with. So you do work on researching matters, you do work on drafting, you work on legal opinions, legal advice, working in corporate firms. And some of the areas that one comes across while working as a corporate intern is, you can have your mergers and acquisitions and taking companies public, like the Zomato IPO. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. So that's a very big chunk of, corporate law and corporate practice. And as an intern, you do get to work in those spaces. But beyond that, there's also, dispute resolution in corporate law practice. There's employment matters. There's sometimes even environment matters. There's technology matters. So there's a very wide, kind of scope of what an intern would get exposed to while they're at a corporate internship. And when you're working as a corporate intern, you usually get, allocated to a specific team. So you have to primarily work on the matters that that team is working on. So if you get into a corporate internship, you might get put into the dispute resolution team where you would primarily be dealing with, say, matters going to the NCLT or the NCLAT. So it's very different from, what many people think, that it's a, career in a very big law firm and you're going to be dealing with buying companies, selling companies. It's much more beyond that. It's also about the product and the services that that company is offering. So your companies or the clients that you deal with might be in the pharma industry, or they might be in the education sector, or even they might be building, airports or roadways. So then you need to have a holistic view and understanding of what those industries are also doing and what the laws regulating those industries are. So as a corporate intern, you are not just limited to company law, you're in a very broad space, and you deal with a lot of different aspects of law and non-law, which are more industry specific, when you work in corporate internships.
Thank you, ma'am, for telling us about that particular question. Now, we believe that everything has its pros and cons. So, I would like to ask you about what are the pros and cons relating to internships in corporate firms?
So let me start with the pros. As I mentioned, there's a very, diverse amount of work. Um, you get to work with a lot of different teams that are there in corporate firms. I'll just give you examples of certain teams that are there in corporate firms. So you have your M&A general corporate work, and then you also have teams which are doing project finance, which is primarily infrastructure related work. You have teams which are doing insolvency and bankruptcy, employment related matters, real estate related matters, technology, media, telecommunication, which is a very new and sort of upcoming practice area. People who are dealing with wills and trusts of like these really big families, big family run businesses. How do they pass on? So when you get to work there as an intern, you get really exposed to, all these different practice areas, which you might not necessarily get working with, say, a litigator in a high court or a district court. The number of clients that you get to see on a day-to-day basis are, far more than you would get to see working in a court practice. So that way it's very, beneficial for overall just, building your knowledge, getting to know more about various industries. And it's good for your exposure as not just as a law student, but I think as a professional as well, because you never know, maybe you find an area of practice that you really like and you would really like to pursue that. So it's a great way to kind of explore the different, diverse options that they have. um, I think another pro is honing your research skills, because when you work in a corporate firm, you're not just researching on Manupatra or SEC online or all these websites. You're also doing sometimes, Google researches and like, looking at SEBI website or RBI website or, the website of some state. Because sometimes our clients are, in different states. They'll be in Goa, they'll be in Maharashtra, they might be in Himachal. So you have to do a lot of research on what are the state related regulations. So you get to um, you have to test your own research skills, and it gets better as time goes on. It's purely practice based research skill honing. Apart from that, your organization skills go up quite a bit because you're dealing with so many clients, you're dealing with so many matters on a day-to-day basis that you just learn to be a little bit more systematic with the way you go about things. Um, Apart from that, for the negatives, I think one of the biggest negatives is that people feel very overwhelmed with the workload. There's so much work that you get as a corporate intern, and it can really throw you off, and it can get very intimidating for someone to, have to do with so many matters. And I think if you don't really have very good organization, time management skills, it can become very difficult. And we have strict deadlines that you have to follow, and the work has to be really perfect. So when you make a mistake and it's not proofread by someone else, it can have a pretty significant consequence. No one's going to scold you very badly because they know that you're an intern and they understand that you're going to make mistakes, and it's all a part of the learning process. But definitely at some point as an intern, you will also feel like, oh God, I made a mistake. It's scary, it's intimidating. I'm dealing with so many things. How do I manage? So that becomes, that's one of the biggest drawbacks I feel, and also the reason why a lot of people feel they're not able to pursue a career there, because they're not able to realize that the workload is so much that it ends up cutting into their personal time and their personal life. So they don't really like that.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. So we get a lot of questions because people and students mainly are interested in applying for internships at law firms, but they do not often know that what the procedure for applying or what are the corporate law firms are looking for in a candidate. So can you just give an insight about that? That what is the recruitment? What do corporate firms look for while recruiting candidates?
So the process is different slightly for internships, and it's different for when you're actually going to work at the
Yes.
firm as an associate. For internships, primarily, they prefer to look for students who are in their fourth year or fifth year, or the penultimate and final year of law school, or max to max, end of third year, when you've done your company law subjects. Because the
Mm.
most basic requirement for any firm internship, any corporate firm internship, is having company law proficiency. So they'll even ask that in interviews at times, what is a special majority? What is an ordinary resolution? Those are very basic questions that you learn in law school during your company law, and you're expected to know that when you go for an internship. So, I've also had a lot of juniors come up to me and ask me when they're in their first year, second year, oh, should we go for a corporate internship right now? And quite honestly, there used to be this joke that my seniors used to tell me that don't go for a corporate internship in your first year, second year. You will become a photocopy person or someone to get the chai and the water, because they
Mm.
can't really give you work and expect you to deliver. Because at your first year, second year stage, you're very new to the law fraternity. You don't really understand, your research skills, understanding great. So it's preferable that you be in your penultimate and final years. Also, by the time you're in your penultimate and final year, you have done a significant number of activities. You've participated in a moot or a debate or a, alternative dispute resolution contest, and those are things that can come out in your resume. So when you are drafting your resume, be it for an internship or even for a job application, definitely make sure you emphasize on the points where you succeeded, where you did a good job. You start with your internships. You start with your latest internship at the topmost. You briefly give a little bit of background as to what you did in those internships. You say, okay, I researched on this aspect of law, or I helped in the drafting of this aspect of law, or I dealt with a lot of voluminous documents. So it shows that you are organized, that you actually contributed while you were there in those internships. Because the law firm or the person who is interviewing you doesn't just want to see the name of the place where you worked. They want to understand, what did you actually do there? Did you learn something from the experience? What did you contribute? They want to understand who you are just from those, like, 4 or 5 pages of your resume. Apart from internships, definitely emphasize on your extra, co-curricular and out of academic activities. I used to write articles for, it's like, say, the ADR blog that my college had. So I put those down there. I mentioned that I'd taken part in a moot. I mentioned the various societies, welfare societies that I was part of. And that really shows them, like, what are my interests, what are my hobbies, what are, apart from being academically inclined. Because at the end of the day, it's not just the grades for them. They don't just want to see an A plus student. They want to see someone who's going to fit into their firm and perform well while they're at that firm. So I used to really emphasize on my sports achievements. And in fact, when I was giving one of my job interviews, I was asked this question, that you've been a part of sports teams. What do you think is an important part of working in a team along with team members? And because I had that experience, because I've played in a sports team, I know what it feels like to be responsible towards your teammates. I was able to give a good answer and I got that job. Like, I turned it down, but I got the job. So it's very important that you don't just fill the tick marks that other people tell you to. You should fill the tick marks that suit you and your personality. You should highlight the best points of your personality on your resume. And you do that by bringing out your extracurriculars, your academic achievements, your research achievements. All of those need to be brought out in your resume. And when a person is looking, an interviewer is looking at you as an intern or a prospective employee, they really focus on those non-academic aspects because they want someone, again, as I mentioned earlier, who is going to fit into their firm, who is going to work well with their colleagues, with the other associates there, who's not going to, cause problems and, who's going to just um, be focused on the task at hand.
Yes. Oh, thank you, ma'am, for that answer. Now let's move on to the career side of things in corporate law firms. So obviously you chose a career in corporate law, and the first question that comes into mind is what made you pursue a career in corporate law, and what would you recommend if someone is trying to pursue their career in corporate law? So your recommendations, please.
So the reason why I chose corporate law was honestly, I just felt it suited my personality and my goals in life better. I enjoy the sort of work environment that a corporate firm has to offer. It could be anything. It could be from the clothes, it could be from the use of technology, or the fact that, you have more people working with you, so the workload doesn't get too much also. It's not that I did not like my litigation internships. I really loved them. Like, I really enjoyed going to court. I really enjoyed, working with arbitrators or working with advocates. It was a very pleasant process. But I liked corporate internships and corporate career more than I liked my litigation internships. Therefore, it made more sense for me to incline towards, corporate career. And by the time I was in my third year, I had decided to take up subjects which would, one, interest me. And it just so happened that those subjects were generally subjects that you would come across while doing, corporate work. For example, commercial contract drafting was a subject that I took. Mergers and acquisition is a subject that I took. I really like mergers. I really like the idea that, you are assisting companies enter India, or small companies be bought by larger companies, and because you're at the end of the day facilitating a lot of products and services into the country, which were not there before. For example, some of our clients are big healthcare companies. They are setting up hospitals in parts of the country which no one would have heard of. So in that aspect, I think it was like really interesting that I can be part of, these sort of initiatives and infrastructure related projects that help develop our country. And that's what really motivated me. As for the type of, traits I think make a corporate lawyer, or the type, like, who I would recommend to go into corporate law, I think definitely someone who has good organization skills. Because if you go into a corporate firm, with very bad time management skills and bad organization skills, you are not going to be able to deal with the pressures of the work. Because from, if not day one, but within the first month of your working, you realize that you will be handling at least, 3 to 4 different clients at a time. And you will have different deliverables, deadlines to meet for each of them. So you have to be able to organize yourself accordingly. You have to be able to meet those deadlines. If an associate tells you, I need something back in 1 hour, you should set your personal deadline at 45 minutes, have, 15 minutes to review it, and then send out the work. So being very disciplined, being very diligent, and, being organized is a very, very important part of being in a corporate firm. Apart from that, I think you should be a team worker, because in a corporate firm, you cannot work solo. It is impossible. No one in the firm works solo. From the lowest level associate to a principal associate to a partner, everyone is working in the team. The hierarchy of the firm is also structured that you work in teams. So you
Teams.
should, yeah, so you should be used to interacting with people. You should be able to, approach your senior and say like, hey, there's this thing I worked on. Can you please review it? Or when you're having a conversation with someone, who is a member of your team, you should be able to candidly have that conversation and discuss what is the best solution for, your client or for the issue at hand. So working in a team and not getting aggravated by the fact that you have, other people that you have to report to or other people that rely on you for your work, you should be adjusted and able to accommodate and adapt to such situations. Um, Apart from that, I think it's a very minor aspect, but many people, when they work in corporate firms, they feel very lost and disillusioned. They feel that the work that they're doing is not something they can display in the public forum, which is true because sometimes, you have very confidential transactions that you cannot go and publicize, or you have such big transactions where there are, around 30 lawyers working on them, and not everyone's name can be, said to be a part of that transaction. Some firms do it, but many firms don't. So then along the way, a lot of associates might feel that, oh, the work, I did a lot of work for this transaction. I'm not getting the, appreciation I deserve for this, or I'm not getting the name or the reputation. So that might be something that if you're looking to build a name in a corporate firm, it's very unlikely to be able to do that unless and until you reach the level of a partner, for example. So definitely, someone who's organized, diligent, ready to be a part of a team and ready to be a part of a bigger picture. That those are people who would, really do well in corporate firms.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Very nicely put there at the end of the answer. So that sums up the entire traits that we found in a corporate lawyer. Basically, let's move on to the next question and the final question. Now, this question is very close to me as well because I'm a part of a batch which is going to graduate during the pandemic. So we are not going to have a proper farewell, and our plans of internships have also been cancelled because of the pandemic situation. So, how has this pandemic affected your, vision of pursuing a career, particularly in terms of the corporate law
It's
firms?
So it's been very difficult. Was I graduated during the pandemic. I never had a convocation. My batchmates and I never got a convocation. We got our degrees in the post, which was very sad. Um, for me, it was a little strange because I got placed when I was in my fourth year. So I had, comfort in the fact that I had a job. Like I didn't have to go hunting for a
Mm.
job. But at the same time, because the, pandemic hit even the firms very badly, the most senior level people were taking pay cuts in law firms. They had a hiring freeze. We were supposed to join sometime in June, July of summer, and they kept postponing, and eventually we joined in October and November across firms. And it's very stressful because you don't know if they're going to revoke your offer. And for 5 months, you're just sitting free. You can't work anywhere else because there's a restriction on you. And you can only just, do Coursera courses. That was what I did. So it was very stressful and very, nerve-wracking because you don't know whether you're going to get your job. Luckily, we managed to join, but it was very difficult, not just for us, but for the other people in the firms who've been working there for many years to adjust to these new circumstances. They had to get used to training us over a video call or training us over a phone call because they couldn't see or meet us in person. I still date have not gone to office for the reason of, sitting there from 10:30 to 6:30 because we're all on a work from home model till date. So I haven't met the partners that I'm reporting to. I've not even seen them on video call because now everyone's tired with video calls. So we're just on phone. So it's definitely a very, very steep learning curve. But one thing, your batch and batches to come can find comfort in is that we went through this, your seniors have gone through it. We will completely understand and sort of help you with that process because across the country, like the 2020 batch, had to struggle to find jobs. They didn't even have a final, like, they didn't have their final year of college. It was not a nostalgia thing, but a matter of survival for us, right? That we need a job right now. We had family members who were falling sick. Someone has to earn. So we've been through that process, and now also the firms and most organizations have gotten used to, using video calls, online platforms to conduct their business. because it's been a year now. So everyone's gotten accustomed to it. So by the time start looking for jobs, for internships, even the organizations and the people within those organizations who are hiring, they will be in a better place to deal with you because they dealt it with our batch. And they will also understand if you guys don't have as many internships on your record as some of your seniors did, because everyone knows what the situation is. Like in my firm, on a before pandemic, every month there would be like around 20 to 30 internships in a single location. But post pandemic, because of technological difficulties, they could only get at max 3 to 4 interns. It primarily has to do with the sort of interface we use. We cannot just send confidential documents over email, private email. So,
Yes.
setting up that entire system of, giving the intern, a technology platform to be able to do the internship is very difficult to do for 30 people. You can only do it for like a few people. So, in that aspect, I don't think, organizations and firms will be like, oh, you don't have, you know, so and so number of internships, or what were you doing in this year? Like everyone will understand, I feel, unless they're very like, strict. But I don't think then you should go to a person and intern or
Yeah.
work for a person who's going to be like, oh, why do you not have internships? If you tell them
Mm.
I was in a pandemic, we were going through a difficult time, they're like, it doesn't matter. That's not a person you want to work for, because further down the line, it's really not going to be good for you. The people who are understanding, my firm, for example, gives great leave policies if you get infected. Not if only if you get infected, if a member of your family gets infected, they give you a like certain amount of time to get back to normal. So definitely, don't stress out about it too much. Just focus on what you can do. If you don't get an internship, at least, try and work on, building your other skills, work on writing, publishing. Those are like great things that if at least if you start somewhere, you can show that I did something and I took Coursera courses. I studied about this new subject. I studied about how to, draft certain agreements. And there's so many things that are there online now that a student has had to, to their disposal, that you can definitely build, continue to build your resume in spite of a pandemic. So definitely focus on those aspects. As a fifth year who or a final year student who's graduated, you don't worry, your seniors are there. They will understand. Feel free to reach out to them and say like, hey, you guys went through this, how do we go through this? Because we had no one before us who went through this, so we had to figure it out. How
Mm.
do you fill out your timesheet? How do you do this? How do you do your billable hours? How do you get reimbursed? So there's so many questions we had that we had no one to ask. You guys have someone to ask, the batch before you, and your juniors will, also have someone to ask when you guys graduate. So it'll be okay. It'll be fine.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am, for answering all of our questions. And there are a few questions. I guess one question I see in the comment section, but that question was already answered by you regarding the skill set which is required for pursuing career in the corporate law. So we'll skip that. Uh, Further, this session is also going to be available as a IGTV video, so those who were not able to join for this live session can easily watch the session afterwards and get the information which will help them in their career. So, thank you, ma'am. If you have anything else to share, you are free to do so. But otherwise, we are done here, and the time has also, uh, in 30 past 5. So, if you have
Yeah.
anything else, you can share.
So if anyone has any follow-up questions, you can either reach out to Legal Law Forum, or you can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. I'm sure they'll share you my profile on LinkedIn, and you can always drop me a message there and ask me, for my input. I may take some time in getting around to it, but I will answer it diligently. So don't worry about that. And
Yes.
other than that, I'm good. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you once again, ma'am, from the team of Legal Law Forum for joining us for this session. It was a wonderful session, and we'd like to have a session again with you after some time on a different topic, maybe. So, thank you once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye. Take care.
Bye.